Negotiating in property is very different to a lot of other aspects of negotiation. One of the crucial things as well is understanding what market value is and purchasing under market value. We want to purchase under market value. We don't want to overpay on the property. We don't want to act on emotion. That first conversation you have with an agent, whether it's over the phone, whether it's an SMS or an email, that right there is the beginning of the negotiations. If you don't hold your cards close to your chest and you give them too much information, they're just going to squeeze certain things out of you. You need to have a structured system and you need to understand what that individual marketplace is doing. We want to be happy with the purchase, happy with what we paid for it, be prepared to walk away. Welcome back to another episode of the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast. My name is Casey Taylor. I'm the host of the podcast. And in today's episode, we're talking about property negotiations and setting yourself up for success to be able to purchase property and get a good outcome for yourself as the purchaser. We don't want to overpay on property, and we want that contract to have special conditions and things in there to benefit us as the purchaser when we're purchasing, mitigating our risk, but just helping us with certain aspects down the track once we settle, etc. I've managed to build a multi-million-dollar property portfolio in just a few short years, and I want to inspire and motivate other Australians that if I can do it, so can you. The Tailored Property Wealth Podcast has been created to help educate, mentor, coach, and support you through everything relating to property investing to make sure you go out there and make a much better educated decision when investing in property. Please like, share, subscribe, and share this podcast with anyone who you think might see value in it. All right, so negotiating in property is very different to a lot of other aspects of negotiations, whether it's in business or whether you're just purchasing everyday products. So you might have negotiation skills in other areas, but that doesn't mean that it's going to translate across to property. And one of the crucial things as well is understanding what market value is and purchasing under market value. That's something that we do in our business so you can get that equity from day one because it's super powerful in combination with that area prime for growth. So there's a lot of skills that you do need to be able to successfully negotiate on property, okay? And a lot of people don't understand this, and definitely beginners. That first conversation you have with an agent, whether it's over the phone, whether it's an SMS or an email, that right there is the beginning of the negotiations. If you don't hold your cards close to your chest and you give them too much information, they're just going to squeeze certain things out of you. And a good agent who's really versed in negotiations is going to be looking for those cues, looking for those different bits and pieces that they can use once those active negotiations start. Now, with negotiating, we want everyone to win. We want to win, the sales agent wants to win, and the vendor wants to win. So we need to understand the agent's motivation, we need to understand the vendor's motivation, and we're obviously going to know what our motivation is as a purchaser and what's important to us. But you can't just be solely looking for yourself. You need to be able to put terms in there and position things in a way where it looks like the agent's benefiting and the vendor's benefiting, right? So that might be asking some really good quality questions to be able to extract information from that agent. What's the vendor's motivation? Why are they selling? What's important to them in terms of their terms, in terms of their settlement period? Do they want a shorter settlement? Do they want a longer settlement? And can we deliver upon that? And that's where that communication piece coming back to our mortgage brokers is important, because sometimes to get a deal done, we need short finance terms, and we do that a lot. And if you, one, don't have the good quality broker there, it's going to let you down. And two, we need to just understand what's possible in terms of that lender's SLA for the individual client or for yourself, right? So that is super crucial. There's no point going in with a short 7-day finance clause if Going to the lender, it's going to be 21 days. So that is super important. If you have a shitty broker, it's going to let you down. We won't take on clients where just one recently, 5 months going on getting a pre-approval, and we just had to have a conversation that unfortunately we can't work with them, because when it comes down to purchasing a property, if it's taking you 5 months and you still don't have a pre-approval, how do we have the confidence that we can get a deal done and we can make that transaction seamless, which is what we're about? So that finance piece as part of property negotiations is important. So make sure you get that right. Now, when we're back to that first starting point with that agent, we don't want to disclose budget to them. You don't want to say, yes, this property ticks absolutely every single box for us. We want to purchase it today. You don't want to voice that in front of other purchasers, because it's going to create urgency, and that's ultimately what the agent's trying to create, is urgency. So you get something done, act on emotion. So keep that close to your chest. If the agent asks what you think of the property, just say, yeah, look, it's not too bad. We'll probably have to have a chat about this, and we can come back to you. So it's really not giving that information away. If you're calling up, hey, is this property still available? And it's listed for $550 and you've got a budget of $700K, do not tell them it's a budget of you've got a budget of $700, because they know that you can just stretch higher. And if you don't have the negotiation skills to showcase what market value is, they're gonna take you for a run. And I've heard a lot of stories for first home buyers who just don't have that experience, and an agent has just absolutely played them along and that got them bidding against themselves. Oh, we've got another offer. If you just increase 5 more K, you've got it. That shit should not be happening. So if that's happening, don't get caught up with that. I kind of just, if an agent tells me there's another offer on the table, I just don't really believe that. What we do is we go in and we pay what we believe is to be market value, and we improve upon those terms sometimes to get it done. So just make sure when you're first having that conversation with the agent that you're not giving too much information away, because it'll just shoot you in the foot when it comes to that negotiation point of view. We want to purchase under market value. We don't want to overpay on the property. We don't want to act on emotion and that price point to completely blow out. So that is where we need to understand comparable properties. We need to understand what the market's doing to really get that value amount right and not overpay on that. And then that's part of when negotiating, we need to justify why we believe the property's worth this. So that is a super important part of it. If you're not confident to discuss that and show comparable properties, then that's going to be a difficult sell for the agent. And sometimes if the agent's not the best quality agent, or they might not be that experienced, if you can provide the comparable properties, they can then pass that on to the vendor and say, hey, look, this is where market value is, blah, blah, blah. Let's get a deal done here. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast. I hope you're learning lots and getting lots of value out of this episode. If you want to discuss the opportunity of working with us here at Tailored Property Wealth, jump across to the website www.tailoredpropertywealth.com.au. Complete the contact form. Let us know that you're listening to the Tailored Property Wealth Podcast, and let's reach out. Let's have a chat and see how we can help you execute on your property goals. Now, when we actively start to negotiate and we're putting forward an offer, before we even start to negotiate on the property, we want to come up with a strategic plan of where we're going to put our first offer and where ultimately we want to finish up. Some people want to go in there and just lowball an offer. And this happens a lot. Agents are like, oh, we got a lowball offer. That's just going to piss the vendor off. It's going to piss the agent off, and you're going to completely waste your time. You need to have a structured system, and you need to understand what that individual marketplace is doing. because whether it's a cool market, a warm market, or a really hot market is going to depend upon how much wiggle room you have. So for a comparison, I've negotiated on something locally here in Newcastle, and property's taking a lot longer to sell price point wise. I know the median days on market are longer. So we have more time to be able to successfully negotiate on a property versus other areas, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. Some of the median days on market's under 10 days. So we don't have as much time to be able to negotiate. So we really need to go in with a first offer and then expect the vendors to counter and come in at where we're prepared to pay and get a deal done there. So that is super important to understand the market you're in and what that marketplace is doing. Now, what I will strategically do with that first offer is price point wise, especially in the markets where we're really hot at the moment, median days on market is under 10 days. We really want to be about 10 to 15K from where we're happy to pay. We don't want to lowball 50K. I had a client this year directing me to lowball offers, and just does not work in a marketplace where it's hot, especially with off-market properties. People think it's an off-market property, you've got all this wiggle room. If you've got the opportunity for an off-market and you're trying to lowball, they'll just go and find someone else to go off-market, or they'll just take it to the market and that property will blow out. Simple as that. So we want to be 10 to 15K outside, ideally, where we're happy to pay. But what we strategically do with our terms as well is we might put in a 21-day finance clause, 21-day pest and building first, and we might do a 60-day settlement or a 90-day settlement. But then with that second counter offer, we're improving our price point, but then we can strategically lower those finance points maybe to 7 days or 14. So the terms have improved. So when that agent goes back to the vendor, they can say, hey, look, we've got the price point up a little bit and we've actually got the terms lower. So it's going to exchange or go unconditional a lot sooner. And that appeals, and it makes a vendor think the agent's working for them, right? It's like, okay, well, this has improved a lot. Agent really hasn't done anything. It's just us with our terms has improved and made that more favorable, more appealing to the vendor. So that's some really important stuff to be able to put within there. Now, as a purchaser as well, as an investor specifically, there's a lot of different clauses we can put in there to benefit us to save some costs. Some agents will pretty much tell you to fuck off with those clauses and say it's the craziest clauses you've ever seen. But for me personally, I'm there to get the best result for the purchaser, protect the purchaser, and set them up for success. So we'll put a fair few clauses in there. Some of them will come back and get declined, but we go in and we put some of those in. Rent back clauses, garden, lawn clauses. We put in inspection clauses. We put in different bits and pieces to be able to set ourselves up for success. This all is subjective to a vendor. Sometimes the solicitor will get in their ear to and tell them no. So it can be complicated, but there's some really good clauses to be able to put in the contract to benefit you as the purchaser. Now, we want to be prepared to walk away when we're negotiating. Heaps of people get caught up with the emotion of it, and they just simply overpay on a property just because they want to get it. And a couple of years ago when prices were going mad, it was started 2022 when the market was still just pumping before we started to see rates increase and things slowed down that little bit. People were paying 60, 70K over market value, over the list price, and we still see well over list price at the moment. But that's sometimes the agents just lowballing that price point to build up their leads. But we don't want to overpay. You don't want to get emotional because then you're playing catch up for a period of time. If you pay over 60, 70K, the market needs to move until your property is worth what you paid for it. We want that flip side, right? We want to make that little bit of money on the way in. So you've got some equity there, and as that market continues to move, you're in a position in 12, 18 months' time where you can do something again. So that is super important. Be prepared to walk away. Sometimes when you walk away, say that's what we're willing to pay, you won't hear from the agent, and then they'll give you a call back and say, hey, actually, let's get the deal done. So be prepared to walk away. So that's some of the things we want to do to successfully secure a property. Sometimes the terms are going to be what gets a deal done and not the purchase price. So just remember that. We've successfully purchased property where we're not the highest offer, price point wise. We secured one a couple of weeks ago that way, and it was purely just shorter settlement, shorter finance pest and building clauses. So the vendor knew it was done, and it was finalised far sooner. It's just their peace of mind. Price point isn't always the most crucial one, but it is important. So just remember that when you're negotiating. Now, once we successfully secure that property, we get it under contract. We've put the finance and pest and building clauses in that contract. And just remember, always put those clauses in the contract unless you're a cash buyer and you don't need finance. We would never recommend that you don't put those clauses in, because that is there to protect you as the purchaser. You don't get finance, pest and building comes back and something really, really bad is wrong with it, we terminate, we move on to the next property. The pest and building is a tool for us to be able to negotiate for things to be fixed, or potentially for a price reduction, so that we can fix things that come up within that report. And this is where it's super crucial to not divulge some things to the agent that you notice when you're securing the property, because that can shoot you in the foot with the pest and building. So you note those things, and I prep clients, hey, this is probably going to come up in the pest and building. We put that in our formal presentation. We know it's there. I don't highlight some of those things to the agent up front, because I know it's going to come up in the pest and building, and then that's where I'm going to use the pest and building to go back to the agent and say, hey, X, Y, and Z's come up. Client wants these fixed. We just prefer to get these fixed prior to settlement. However, if your vendor would prefer a price reduction, then we can do that. I always like to go in and just ask for things to be fixed first, so we're not slapping them in the face with a salmon and saying, hey, we want X amount of dollars off, right? So I find that is a more receptive way of doing it, but then we're letting the vendor make the decision if they want that price reduction. But that tool, understanding pests and buildings and using that as a tool to get things fixed or get a price reduction, is super crucial. Purchasing established property in established areas where a property's 5 to 30, 40, 50 years old, there will be things that come up in that report. That is inevitable. So expect it, understand it, know your pest and building reports, know what things are going to cost, and go and have that conversation with the agent. It's a really big tool to be able to get things up to scratch. Again, it's never a guarantee. I say this to clients all the time. It's never a guarantee. We're dealing with an agent, we're dealing with a vendor, and some of them don't want to play ball. And that is the negative of purchasing under market value and off market, is when you get a good deal, it's hard to then get an added discount on top, whereas they could just take it to the market, get a higher price point. And even if they do have to negotiate some things off the pest and building, price point wise, they're still better off. So there can be some negatives, but if you do it well, you can normally get it done. I'd probably say if things come up in a pest and building that we need to negotiate on, we've probably got a hit rate of maybe 78% of getting things fixed, or some things, or that price reduction to have things fixed. So it's just, it's a matter of really having that conversation, understanding your pest and building and using that as the tool. That's pretty much it, guys. Negotiations are crucial, right? It really is gonna make you or break you to set you up for success in that first 6 months. And it can kind of leave a bit of taste in your mouth as well if you know you're paying over on a property, or you come back to it after and you're like, fuck, I overpaid on that. It's going to leave a bit of taste in your mouth a little bit, and we really don't want that. We want to be happy with the purchase, happy with what we paid for it, and it's just going to make the transaction a lot more seamless. So property negotiations are crucial. If you do not do this day in and day out, it's going to be hard to make it seamless when purchasing. A lot of the agents that we have relationships with and get those off-market purchases, we get those because of how we operate. They know that even though we're going to negotiate, etc., we're doing it seamlessly. We've done it day in and day out. It's not a clunky process. We're not going to really freak out if a pest and building comes back and there's things wrong. So that knowledge and that experience in the negotiation piece is very powerful when purchasing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this one. I hope it's valuable. I think it will be, whether it's an investment property or whether it's an owner-occupied property. The negotiations are crucial when you're purchasing. So good luck with the negotiations if you're out there doing it yourself. And until next time, have a good one. Bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you don't already, make sure you follow us across all of our social platforms. That can be Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. I wish you all the best out there on your property investing journey, and I hope each decision you make in purchasing more property gets you closer to your goal of financial freedom.